Hello and welcome to our first how-to. In today's how-to, we'll be taking you through a very quick tutorial on how to use the brushes in Photoshop. So the machine we have here is a MacBook Pro running Mac OS Mojave, and we are using Adobe Photoshop CC 2019, so it's the latest version. Now, when you are using brushes, the first thing we should do is kind of just focus our attention on this part of the user interface. So here we have a bunch of different tools. We have Move tool, we have Marquee, we have the magic wand, we have the fill, we have the pointer, we have text, tons and tons of tools. However, the tool we're focusing on is this one. We're using the brush tool. And if you want, you can just press B and it will select the brush. That's on Windows and Mac. So once we've selected the tool here, we can look at the top part of the screen here. So this bar is where all of the editing tools for the brushes lay. So let's sort of go through them one by one. This one is where you can change what brush type it is. So you can change from a crop brush, a healing brush, a magnetic lasso, whatever brush you want is here. Here is where you change the size and the hardness, so you can change how hard the brush applies, and we'll show you that in just a second, and also how big the brush tip is, and then you can change some of the dimensions here as well. Here is where you change the effect that it does, so if you draw with this brush, what it will do to the bottom layers. You can change the opacity, so how opaque or transparent it is. You can change how blurry it is, and then you can change how smooth it is. And then on this side here, we have different brushes to select from. So this is where you get the different brush types. So for example here, the brush that we're using is just a normal, the basic bog standard brush. Over here, we can use the chunky charcoal brush. And as you can see, it gives a different effect to the others. And then if we go to wet media brushes, we've got a wet blender. So as you can see, the different brush types depend on or act and behave differently depending on what you're doing. So the wet brushes sort of interlink with each other. So as you can see, that one brush is dragging the pink and the green together as I go through them, because it's enacting what a real wet brush would do. Just catching up with me there. And then we have special effect brushes. So these are different brushes. So this is a splatter. So you can sort of make it look like you just splattered paint all over the page. We've got this, so it's kind of like I don't know what this one's called. Scratch blend, so it's like you're scratching the paper. This is a screen tone, so this is sort of adds little dots, kind of like a cartoon, and then these are the same but little diamonds instead of dots. And then this is a thicker kind of splat. There you go. So let me just undo that so we can get a clear plane once more. So let's have a look at the different brushes. Did not mean to do that. So if we go up to here and we go to the size tool, this is where we change the size of the brush. So this toggle changes how thick the brush is, so that makes it quite thin. Then it goes up to 5,000, which makes it massive. As you can see, it doesn't even take up the canvas, it's so big. So we're going to go back to being in the middle. So there you go. So that's more of a normal size. Flow change, or you can't change the flow here. So let's go back and change it to the basic brush. Let's go to the hard round brush. So this is a normal brush. So now we can change the hardness. Hardness is how soft it is. So if we take it down here, this brush is now really soft. So as you can see, it's blurred in the corners and it has a very flowy effect to it. And then if we raise the hardness to the top, it's very rigid and the edges are straight and there's no blur at all. So that is what the hardness toggle does. Now if we go to here, so if we just select a normal brush, there you go, and select that there, we could change how the effects are. So for example, we could change how moist the brush is here. We can make it very dry, so it kind of just goes on and doesn't do anything and then runs out halfway through. Or you can make it very, very wet, so this kind of really mixes different colours. So you can almost sort of colour this like a palette, and it mixes all the colours together like that. You can also change the wetness and the load and the mix and the flow all here. So let's focus on flow. So if we make this lower, this makes the flow very light. So it's like you've kind of just finely tapped your brush in paint. So the brush isn't very packed with paint at all. However, if you raise it more, the thicker the paintbrush becomes. Load is very much the same. So if we reduce the load, you kind of get hardly no pink. But if you raise it all the way to the top, it's very full of pink. Well, it's selected to white at the moment. Don't know how it did that. There you go. So that's better. And then mix is kind of the same. And then wet changes the behavior of how the pen affects the different brushes. So here it's not wet at all, so it just draws over them and doesn't affect it at all. If you make it really wet, it interacts and it really mixes with the other brushes. So that's a kind of basic overview of the brushes. I do suggest you try them yourself. There's tons of brushes here. So if you go to this corner here, none of these have been downloaded. These are all preloaded with Adobe Photoshop. So you've got tons and tons of different brushes here to choose from. So yeah, definitely have a play around with them. So that concludes today's quick overview of the brushes. We do have more Adobe Photoshop based tutorials coming. And we also do cover this in our masterclasses, so do stay tuned and click the link below. But that concludes today's how-to. Well, our next one will be about how to create an app mock-up. So if you're wanting to make a mock-up of an app, or whether it be Android, Windows, iOS, we're going to be exploring that, and we're going to be exploring how to do that in Adobe XD. So stay tuned for more videos, like and subscribe for more, and we cannot wait to see you in the next video.